Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandy. So back on Card Fate Vanguard deck profile. So we guys enjoyed the like, comment, subscribe, and subscribe. This time we are covering set 13, Griphogila, Brandt Gate. So finally, it's over, the Griphogila march. Honestly, I thought I was going to be more depressed about like all these Griphogila decks, considering I'm literally doing these all in the same day. Because right now I'm on the last one. It's 10:25 a.m. on Thursday of September 21st. But I mean, hey, I'm still feeling really energized after this. And I'm not recording after this, or at least deck profile-wise, I'm not recording after this. But anyways, we have this one Griffo deck here, which I think is basically the one thing that everyone who plays Griphogila was probably expecting of me when they thought of my deck profiles, and that was like the focus on the marker making aspect to make sure that you hit the 10k. This is the one build I designated towards this because for those of you that don't know, Brandt Gates Griphogila was always like my least favorite. It was always the one like that felt the weirdest and the one that just felt the worst in my opinion, compared to what I heard was apparently Dragon Empire. And in my opinion, Dragon Empire was not the best, no, but like it wasn't the worst either. Brandt Gate felt like the worst for me, but this version feels like the best because it's like consistently meant to bring out Griphogila's true strength. So I mean, let's go into the start shall we, and see what we got. And you see what I mean by that, and this is pretty much the definition of my mind of what Uniforms is trying to do, aka concede everything to one style and fuck logic. First today we have our starter in Grifoseed. Grades with boost 5k, shield 6k base. You can have a total of 5 cards in your ride deck, including this card, 3 Calamity cards, and an Overtrigger. Contains Vanguard. You get plus 2k for each Calamity card with a different card name in your soul. And Auto Vanguard at the beginning of your main phase. Choose a Calamity card from your ride deck, put it to your soul. Then by putting 3 Calamity cards that were in your soul that were originally in the ride deck back into the ride deck face up, you can search your hand or deck for up to 1 Dragon Tree of Eclectic Decimation Griphogila. Ride it as stand. If you search your deck, you shuffle it. And if you wrote a card, choose 2 of your rear guard circles, whether they have Dragon Tree markers on them or not, and put 2 Dragon Tree markers on them. All around 1 each. So all around pretty solid. It has 3 different abilities. You know, the first one and the most important one being the fact that you get the 5 ride deck cards, meaning you can set up for your Griphogila's abilities really easily. The second one being the fact that you don't have to discard for ride deck, and that's important because you know you want to be able to keep as many hand cards for guarding since you want to get to late game, and that means thanks to this you can guard in the early game while you're still sending your ride deck cards to soul, and then you get that Griphogila from main deck. And then the very last important part about the skill is the fact that his numbers will always match the grade that you're supposed to be at if you were riding normally. So you know, when you send 1 card, so he'll be on 8k like a grade 1. When you send 2 cards, so he'll be on 10k like a grade 2. And grade 3 is only where he'll be different because he'll be 12k compared to 13. But on the bright side, that's typically when you ride into Griphogila, and you still get 2 markers to make up for most of Griphogila's skill before you can get the extra crit. All around, very solid starter. Grifoseed does its job well and is one of my favorite starters that Bush has ever made because it literally does everything it needs to do. So 1 of a Grifoseed. Then we have our 3 orders in the ride deck. 1 is the start of the end, 1 Diminishes Metamorphosis, and 1 Looming Demise. You can send these to Soul and Grifoseeds away in any order. You can go 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1, or start with the 2 and then go 1, 3. It doesn't really matter. Either way, though, they are all orders that share the same effect. Play them by counterblasting 1 order to search your deck for up to 1 Calamity card and reveal it, and then put it to your hand and shuffle it. So you can run these in the main deck if you wanted to basically get a free order search, though honestly it's not fucking worth it. Like the deck eats up a lot of CB, and deck thinning just for 1 order when you can like deck thin for anything else that's more important than it, yeah, you definitely don't need these cards. So I mean, if you want to run them in the main deck, go ahead, but I wouldn't suggest it and just keep them in the ride deck and use them as soul fodder for Grifoseed. And then finally we have Overtrigger and Star Dragon Deity of Infinitude Eldo Breath. So anyone that has played against Brandt Gate, specifically Gravidia, probably knows what this is, and probably has PTSD against it because double 1 million. Now, before I continue, I want to let this be clear. 2 weeks ago, me and my friends were screwing around, and he was playing DP. He lost this match, but we did the math. If he had survived, because he had 4 Grand Scouts and he had access to Unibird on the next turn, if he had survived to his next turn, he would have been able to play all 4 Grand Scouts and brought him all the way to the 1 millions. Off of just Grand Scouts alone, he would have been able to surpass the Overtrigger. And not just like barely, but like basically add the 1 million to whatever like you would assume a normal DP number is, so basically high 70s. And that's actually what it was. I think it was like 1,076,000 something. So like quite literally just add the million to it. It actually nullified the over. And then we did the math and we did pull the over, and it was like some bullshit fucking arbitrary number. Anyways, though, Eldo Breath being able to hit some good numbers is amazing. Anyways, onto the scope, because I completely ignored it. You may only have 1 Overtrigger in your deck. Remove it as a trigger, move the card, draw a card, choose 1 units. It gets +1 million for the turn, and if you build it during your drive check, activate its additional effect, which you get to double the power and critical of all former units until end of turn, increase the power and double when activated. Now, I recently got a ruling on this where I believe it counts the boost, when before I don't think it did. Like, if you boost a unit, I think now it does count it. But either way, though, being able to double crit and power is great, because that pretty much means everything on your board board's a double crit except for Griff, which is obviously a quadruple critical. So pretty much everything is now a PG, and someone has 2 million on the board. Probably not going to be Griff in all fairness, unless you really need to put it on Griff. And then everyone's at least swinging for probably 20k drops at the 20k drops at the very least. So one of Elder Breath. Very nice for numbers, very nice for pressure, and anyone that has played against Griphogila has probably faced against this, and probably has PTSD from it. So yeah, one of Elder Breath. Then we have our normal triggers. First, we run 3 copies of Star Aggression Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. It's nice crits to have. You have a Vanguard crit pressure. Might as well try to run more crits in the main deck to put crit pressure on the rear guard as well. Then we have 4 more crits in Patrol with Decker Cops, so we've total 7 crits. 4 copies of this one, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, the amount of boosted. Put the soul to give someone plus 2k. Not amazing, but this deck sometimes can run into soul problems, especially if you open a very certain way. So being able to quickly fix those problems, and thankfully you can fix them almost immediately thanks to Griphogila being a grade 0, is definitely nice. So you know you can still get your soul and still get a bunch of markers in the early game, and then still have extra crits for pressure, but also still keep them from guarding power. Then we have 4 draw triggers in Amulet Connector, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, continuous guard circle, punch vanguards are grade 3 guards, 5k shield. So cool. It's a 10k shield, it's a draw trick, so helps increase the hand, but it doesn't deck you out too fast, and it's just nice for guarding. Like, we obviously want to focus on the crits for the pressure, but we do want to be able to build up our hand enough so we can get the cards that we need to make pressure with 8k rear guard. So 4 Amulet Connector for that. Then we have 4 Alterate Spear Drag. Grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power, just standard heal. That's about it. I don't really like the effect tools too much. I feel like them being a constant 10k unless certain situations are right, and then becoming a fluctuating 25k shield is kind of meh. So I'd rather have a consistent 15 over a fluctuating 10 to 25. But I mean, hey, take that as you will. If you want to run the effect tools, go ahead. But I prefer just the normal heals just for the consistency of it. So we run 7 crits for the offensive, 4 draws, and 4 heals because the best offense is a good defense. And then we have our grade 1s. First, we're on 4 copies of Detonation Mutant Bulbamine. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto rear guard. At the end about it, boost it. If your order's on a set order, put it to soul and counter charge 1. Now, this deck will definitely run into a CB problem because it has a lot of CB spammers, and yet for some reason it doesn't end up in the same CB problem that Stoicheia does, even though Stoicheia literally just has the same amount of CB spammers, but I guess because of the one combo I do. But being able to go to soul and counter is great because this deck, like I said, can run into soul problems, so being able to fix that is nice, and also being able to fix the CB problem is also nice, except the downside to this one is, especially in this deck only has 1 set order. That already tells you what the set order is, and that means this card's basically vanilla until you see that 1 set order. However, it means you get to save more space, put in more marker makers, which is what I ended up doing, and I didn't come up with this idea on my own. I got it from a video from Freedom Duo, where I know they had orders in their deck, or I'm pretty sure they did, but I saw, like, I skipped to a point in the video where I saw Bulbamine with the set order that you get from Vartex on the board, so I was like, huh, interesting, I forgot that counts as a set order. So being able to go to someone counter charge is pretty nice, and while yes, you'd have to wait for late game to pull it off, it's a good wait for it. So 4 Bulbamine, just a good grade 1. Then we have 4 copies of Dragon Tree Wretch, Royd Akuizas, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto when placed on rear guard circle by counter blasting 1. Choose one of your rear guard circles without any Dragon Tree markers on and put Dragon Tree marker onto that circle. So all around it's pretty solid because it puts a marker onto the board, which does nice for pressure. Sadly, you can't play this before you play Griphogila, so you can stack markers on those circles. But hey, at least you can get different rear guard circles with markers on them. And then auto rear guard once per turn. This is never going to go off because you don't have set orders in this deck. But if you did, when you place a set order from the hand into the order zone, counterboss want to check the top 5, to 1 unit card among them with a grade less than or equal to your vanguard, call it to rear guard on the same column as it, and shuffle your deck. So all around pretty solid. I remember one of the plays I used to pull that when I had the Orphist line mixed in with it was I would call a Nuvorio in front of it, then I would use this thing after playing a set order to call something on top of that Nuvorio and use that Nuvorio skill to call up a Shadow Army token. So all around it was pretty solid, but you could also use it to call itself if you did have another one and then pay more counterboss. The downside is though, that would definitely eat away at your counterboss, but now that ability is no longer a thing, the deck does have less of a CB problem. Though at the same time, what I replaced the set order with also has a CB cost to it, so I didn't really replace the CB cost with something free. I just replaced it with a different card that had CB. Either way, though, it makes a marker for free, and if you do run order, or not for free, you get the point, but like if you do end up running orders, you can also use it to call more copies of itself or more copies of marker makers and basically get out of board. Either way, very solid grade 1, 4 of. I do wish it was just place a set order from anywhere, though, not just from hand, but it is what it is. Then we have 4 copies of Planet Wall Dragon. Grade 1 boost, 0 to 6k base, continue Sentinel. You may have to form Sentinels in deck and also put on guard circle. Choose one of your units. It cannot be hit on the battle. And if your hand is 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand. Card a standard PG. None special battle basically means if this and only one other card is in your hand and place it on guard circle, you don't have to discard one, which is great. Because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, which in this case is take a few damages, call down this thing, make 2 markers, call down this thing, and then just rush your opponent with it. And then when your opponent counterattacks you, you can draw down this PG when you have only 1 hand card and be like, nope, I am good and I'm safe and I don't have to discard anything, which is great. But typically considering this is Griphogila, and that means you're pretty much going full defensive, you're not really going to get that ability off until the turn right before you pull off the over, or unless your opponent rushes you very hard. But when you do get to play it, it definitely comes in as a lifesaver, so you don't have to discard too many cards. All around, Planet Wall is a very solid PG. You can run Violate Wall if you want because they both have the exact same skill, but I prefer Planet Wall because it came around closer to the time of Griphogila's release. So 4 copies of Planet Wall. Then move on to our grade 2s. Run 4 copies of Dragon Tree Wretch Cyber Katuel. Grade 2 set 5k shield 10k base. It makes so much sense to me that the Draco Tree marker maker I hate the most in terms of art is the one that I choose to run in the Griphogila deck, simply because this was the Griphogila deck I chose to go full tryhard, more or less, with the like marker making type of deal. The only reason I don't run the Blitz Order, by the way, is because I don't have the space for it. I could have put it in, but I was like, nah, there was another card I wanted to run in place of it, and I don't regret that decision at all. Anyways, auto and placed on rearguard circle by counter blasting one and soul blasting one. Choose one of your rearguard circle without any Draco Tree markers on it, put a Draco Tree marker onto that circle, and so you search your deck from 1 Mask of Hydra Gum, reveal it, put it to hand, shuffle your deck. This is the reason why this deck doesn't have another set order. I'm not kidding with you, because the card I did replace it with, I did want to use it, don't get me wrong, and that is what I replaced the set order with. However, that's not why I replaced the set order. The reason I replaced the set order is because every single time I tried to use this thing, I would always have that set order in hand, and I would only ever have 1 soul, because that set order took up 1 soul. So, I would either have to choose between playing the set order and using his skill, and banking I would see another copy of himself to make a marker, or I'd have to call this thing but not get a set order, meaning I couldn't use Bulba Mine. So, it was never really a good combo for me, and I didn't want to run any other set orders because the other set orders all costed CB, except for the factory one that like works with the arms, and I didn't really want to use those either. So yeah, I didn't really have much of a choice, which is why I ended up scrapping the set order. There's probably a way to fit it in it consistently, but I was like, I don't feel like doing it. But being able to search the Mask of Hydra Gum is pretty nice because it decks them, especially because that can also search for more Hydra Gum units. And again, since this deck is focused on trying to hit Griphogila Vartex's 10 Hydra Gum unit thing, that definitely works with it. And also being able to create markers is great. So we have 8 marker makers in total. It's a very solid 4. She does her job well. She's a great card. Then we have 4 copies of the thing I replaced the set order for, Skewed Pain Dragon. This is here simply because when I was trying to find Omna Grizio's English arts for the deck profile, I'm still mad about this, by the way, and I couldn't find them, the first thing I saw was Skewed Pain Dragon, and I was like, huh, why is it up here? I mean, the fight only happened 2 weeks ago, fair, but still, I would feel like this one had been edited so recently. So I clicked on it, and I saw Skewed Pain Dragon's English art, and I was like, cool. And that's why I run this in the deck. Literally, it's just because I had an English art. If I didn't have an English art, I wasn't going to run it. Anyways, grade 2 set 5k shield, 10k base. Auto rearguard, when attacks a vanguard, counterblast 1 for every 5 grades of the sum of the cards of set orders in your order zone. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards, kill it, and then it gets plus 5k power until end of battle. All around pretty solid because it gets 10k if your sum of grade is 10. And because the set order automatically is a grade 11, that's a free kill 2 and it's a 20k swing. And if by some miracle you play a second Vartex on top of that, that's a kill of 4 and plus 20 off of just 1 CB. 4 of Skewed Pain Dragon. He may eat away at your CB, but he's definitely going to slow down your opponent by killing the rear guards that you get to pick, and he still gets numbers out of it too. 4 of grade 2. Not the best option in a CB heavy deck, but definitely not the worst either. Then we move on to our grade 3s. We run 3 copies of Mask of Hydra Gum. Grade 3, normal order. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You have to 1 Unicard, Draco, Mask, Kessen's card name from among them. Reveal, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So cool. It's just a top 5 search for like Draco, Mask, Kes. All around pretty solid. There's no Mask Kes in this deck, but hey, that means either searches Vartex, OG Griphogila, which is nice for the order skill, Wretch to make a marker, or this boy to make a marker. Either way, though, very solid order. And exactly the other effect we can't use, but I'm going to go over it anyways in case you wanted to know what it is. Act Drop Zone. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard without Mask Kessen's card name, reveal a grade 3 with Mask Kessen's card name from your hand, and write the revealed card as the cost to stand. If you road, put this card to soul. Your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 again. You do not Persona Ride this turn, activate Persona Ride. So, cool. It would get numbers out of it if you did, except however, even if the thing didn't actually have Persona Ride icon, which is interesting because I always felt like that if this said grade 3 or greater Vanguard and this said grade 3 or greater card, I would 100% believe that this Vartex would have been a mask just so you could use this with it and then force a Persona Ride. But I mean, hey, it is what it is. It's a top 5 search. You get a free Draco Tree card. It's just nice to have. It's an easy 3 of because it does it for free and you get to search it out with this thing. So what's not to like about it? Then move on to our grade 10, and that is Dragon Tree of Eclectic Decimation. Griphogila! Grade 10, Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base, continues Vanguard Circle. During your turn, it gives us 5k for each Draco Tree marker on your rear guard circles, and then if you have 3 or more, it gets +1 critical. This deck makes it very easy to get them because, again, you have all these marker makers, which is nice to have. So it's an easy, like, 23k based off of just Griphogila alone, but then it's probably going to hit that 28k double crit at the very least with this deck. And even if you're eating up a decent amount of your CB, if you're forcing out your opponent every turn with a double crit Vanguard, you're probably going to get a benefit out of this one way or another. And this other effect is auto Vanguard once per turn. When this unit attacks into a Vanguard, choose a Face of Calamity card from your ride deck and remove it from the game. And if you do not remove a card, choose an over trigger from your ride deck, reveal it, activate all its trigger effects and additional effects, remove it from the game, and then stand all your rear guards with rear guard circle projection markers on them. So board restand, your entire front row gets, someone gets 1,000,000, and then your entire front row gets double power and critical. So this thing is with 4 crit, and God knows what if you gave it the 1,000,000, or if you didn't, who cares? And then someone has at least 2,000,000 on the board, and then everyone's at least double crit. So again, like I said at the start of this video, instant game the second you flip Elder Breath. Either way though, Griphogila definitely has a lot of pressure to him. He gets a lot of numbers, he gets a lot of hits, and that's what I love about like Brandt Griphogila specifically, is because you know when the over is coming, unlike Armatinoa and Vamfreeze / Gilmage Held, where you want to have them earlier in the match so that they have more of an impact. This one, and Blessed Favorite to some extent, Blessed Favorite can really show up anywhere and it doesn't really matter, and same with Drigveda. But like with Elder Breath specifically, if you see if you know when it's going to show up, you know when you can go all in with the board and pretty much make it a game-ending board, because everyone's going to have double power and at least someone will have 2,000,000 and everyone will have at least double critical. So again, Griphogila, very solid grade 3, hits pressure the entire game, especially when we have a total of 7 crits running into this, and then so giving the rear guards pressure, but also giving himself pressure with all of our marker makers and rear guard retirers. All around very solid grade 10, 3 of. And then we have our evolved form of Griphogila, the one I don't care for, and that is Supreme Dragon Tree of Annihilation, Griphogila Voltexoni. Grade 11, Twin Drive, 18k base, auto when it's placed by riding by anything, so whether it's just riding from this or riding on top of itself. Put a Gripho Extralogia token into your order zone, so again, set orders, so it does finally proc off this boy's effect, it does proc off Bulbamine's effect, which all around is pretty nice to have. And while yes, its ability is a hard once per turn on this card, if you again ride a second copy of it, you do get 1 more, so it's technically 2 of them. And anyways, continues Vanguard during your turn, it gets plus 10k and a crit. I still hate this ability because it feels like, it doesn't feel like a straight up upgrade like how other cards, when they ever evolve, like they get an upgrade of that skill. It just feels like they just chose to make this easier to obtain, which isn't an upgrade. They didn't make it stronger. They just made it, oh yeah, let's just skip the part where they actually have to try a little bit to get that effect. So I don't know. I feel like I'm the only one that like dislikes that effect, but whatever. 28k double crit is nice to have. And then continues Vanguard. If the total number of your Hydra Gum and Draco Tree markers on your rear guard circle is 10 or more, again, this deck is made to hit that, and it hits it really well. It gets plus 10k power after one of the player's turns. So cool. 28k base during your opponent's turn, and then 38k base double critical during your turn is very nice to have. Adds a lot of pressure with him, but it just feels like a giant beast stick and nothing better, which kind of sucks for some big-ass boss monster that's literally meant to be the end bringer. But I mean, it is what it is. And then auto Vanguard once per turn. When this unit attacks into a Vanguard, choose a Face of Calamity card from your ride deck and remove it from the game. And if you do not remove a card, choose a trigger unit from your ride deck, reveal it, activate all its trigger effects and additional effects, remove it from the game, and then stand all your rear guards on rear guard circle projection markers on them. So it pretty much works the same way as Griphogila, except the difference is it doesn't have to flip over an over trigger specifically. So when you remove a trigger from this thing's effect, you can activate that trigger in case Elder Breath would deck you out, because maybe you only have like 4 deck cards left and you still have a draw in deck, and you're afraid that Elder Breath will make you not draw the draw, and then you know you're pretty much dead from the draw of its effect. If you see a draw trigger in your drive check, take a shot every time I said the word draw in that last sentence. But being able to stand everything and get a bunch of numbers is pretty great as well, especially when this thing is on the Vanguard circle and you do use Elder Breath. It's going to at least be bigger numbers than OG Griphogila. So all around Vartex is pretty good for numbers. The only thing I have to say towards this thing is I wish I had some ability to protect its own rear guards, because while yeah, it's easy to like hit the numbers of like having the 10 markers and or Hydrogums on the board, the thing that makes it annoying is that if they get rushed down at all, then you lose the power if you barely hit it. Or if they just kill them by effects, you just get screwed over and then you don't get the benefit. So I wish I had some way to protect them, but I mean, it is what it is for Vartex. And then we have our last card, and that is Griphogila Extralogia token, or technically our second to last card, but like the last card that's something to do with the main deck, since these guys all place it. Well, then again, this technically has something to do with the main deck too, since literally these guys place it. So there's that. Estologia token skill. Grade 11 represents an Estologia token, cannot be put into the deck. Auto order zone, when it's at the beginning of your main phase, you may search your deck for up to one trigger card, put it to your right deck face up, and shuffle the deck. And then if you put a card, choose a Hydro Gun from your drop zone, and you may call it to rear guard. Cool, it's not a mandatory rear guard call, so you don't have to call something if you don't want to. But considering the fact that you moved a trigger, you're probably going to call something anyways. But again, that's not a mandatory move a trigger. You can if you want to. Typically, I go for the draw trigger, so I don't deck myself out. But in this deck, I tend to go for crits in case I'm like, if I know I can't kill this turn, and also if it's not the turn I'm going to pull the over, I'll probably get rid of a crit just to make sure I'll be fine for the next turn and give myself a better chance of surviving. But either way, you remove a trigger, you call it down, maybe this guy to get more markers, or this one to get more markers, or hell, maybe a grip that you discarded last turn, either for numbers or just to make more Hydrogums on board. And then, speaking of Hydrogums on board, the other effect is act order zone once per turn by ditching any Griphogila from your hand, so you can combo this well with this ability after you ditch either Vartex last turn or Griphogila last turn to call them back with the removing a trigger skill. But by ditching a Griphogila, you draw a card and you can choose any one of your rear guard circles, regardless if it has a marker on it or not, and put a Dracochi marker on that circle. So all around, pretty solid. That's a freebie marker you get on any circle. So, you know, maybe the circles that Grifoseed gave markers to, or the circles these guys gave markers to. Doesn't matter if it has a marker on it or not. It gets a free marker, which is great. And then if you wanted to, so you get that apart just by ditching a grip, which is great. But then if you wanted to, you can put the top card of your deck into your damage zone face down, and then choose a face-up Calamity card from your right deck and remove it from the game. You cannot tell me that any of you would have preferred to have this card, this ability on the set order and not have this here, because that actually fits like final boss monster that has a countdown timer thing skill. Don't tell me to my face that you wish that skill wasn't on Vartex. Anyways, though, being able to speed up Vartex's whole skill is amazing, because while yes, you do have to take a damage face down, it does end up speeding up the clock, like I said. And when you have a full board of marker makers and this thing's a consistent 20 to 38k double critical, yeah, it's pretty much going to do everything you need when you speed up that Elder Breath, especially when, again, it is Eldo Breath, and Eldo Breath kind of just makes everything game. So, yeah, one of Estologia token, if you have a second Vartex and you can afford to go into it and still use both of them, by all means, go ahead. But typically, you're only going to need one of these, and fair enough. And then we have our 5 Dracochi markers, but to be fair, you might need 10. I've definitely had games where I've gone up to 10 markers. So, you know, or technically it was 9, but I would have gotten 10 if I had done my math a little bit better and I would have like won that game. I'm still upset about that because I lost because I did the math wrong, because I forgot to count for Griphogila's extra 10k skill. I hate myself for that. But anyways, yeah, so about 5 to 10 markers is about good for that. Anyways, during your turn, if you have a Vanguard, Dracochi, or Mass Cousin's card name, all units on the circle get plus 5,000 power. One of them doesn't really do that much, especially with all these cards basically being vanillas once they're placed, except for Skewed Pain over here and Bulb Mine to some extent. But I mean, hey, once you have multiples, they're all just plus 10, so I think that's good. Like I said, 5 to 10 is pretty good. And without further ado, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is fun to play, but I say it's fun to play because it's so unique from the other Griff decks. The other Griff decks don't focus on trying to bring out Griff's like high number factor, just focus on playing Griff with their nation, like how Griff is actually invading them. Here it is just like the invasion has already occurred. It is just a bunch of Hydrogum and Dragon Tree units with like 2 cards that aren't, and it's pretty much just letting those guys do all the work, and those 2 cards pretty much get to do the side job. So like that's why this deck is fun to me. Like it's so different from my other Griphogila decks, but like I know if I were to change the other Griphogila decks to feel the same, it would just feel like I'm playing the same deck just in a different nation. Like it wouldn't feel any fucking better. So I'm this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your vanguards.